My dead cousin keeps asking me for money. "Hey," he says, leaning in the doorway. "Welcome back home." I recognize the hoodie before I recognize him. Ragged and stained by the decades, the lettering is still legible, class of '09. "Hi," I say, sitting up in bed. Fear rumbles in the nether regions of my mind, but it never truly connects. "It's been a while," he says, taking a step towards me. "The building is old, but the floor doesn't creak." "What brings you back to Poprad? Visiting the family? A funeral?" Oh, another soundless step. The air in the room turns frigid. Who died? I open my mouth, but no words come out. Dazed with sleep and stress, my mind struggles to make sense of things. Stefan bursts out laughing. "I'm messing with you, cousin. Appreciate you coming. Wish the circumstances were different." Another silent step. The moonlight catches his face. Sunken eyes and crooked nose and pallid skin. The years have made their mark. "Airbnb, huh?" He produces a crumpled pack of Starkey out of his sweatpants. "Is there a no-smoking policy? Does it matter?" I ask. Stefan grins. Some of the teeth are missing. None of them are healthy. He lights up and offers me one. "I quit," I say, "about 5 years back. Good on you. I tried a couple times, but could never last more than a day or two. The puff of smoke is thicker than it should be. It almost obscures his crooked smile. You know, addictive personality and all. How the words still struggle in my throat. "How are you?" Dead. For a moment, the smile disappears. For a moment, Stefan's pale face looks as it should. Then, his usual smile returns. But heaven's nice. Real tranquil. Real bright. There's little cherubs with harps and shit. Oh, I say, noticing puffs of steam coming from my mouth. "I'm sorry. Don't be." Went off on a high note. A really high note. With another chuckle, Stefan strides past me to the window. He reeks of old sweat and burnt plastic. Stefan smokes and watches the street outside, and then, as if it was of no consequence at all, he asks, "Is Anna coming?" "Yeah," I say, pulling up the covers to escape the cold. "Her flight gets in tomorrow." "She married?" "I don't think so." He says nothing. He just ashes his cigarette on the windowsill. "And you?" Stefan finally asks, getting bored of the window. He makes his way across the room, picks up my discarded pants, and fishes out my wallet. "Wife? Kids?" "Sorry, haven't had a chance to catch up. Been real busy. No wife. No kids. There was a girl I was seeing for a couple of years, but no wife. No kids." Stefan doesn't listen. His focus is solely on my wallet. "Organ donor," he says. Neat. I let him rifle through my loyalty cards and health insurance. The sleep fully leaves my eyes, and I realize he can do no harm anymore. "Hey," he says, "could I borrow 20 euros? "For what?" His brow furrows. The single gesture ages him well beyond his years. Heaven is nice. Real nice. Little babies with harps and all. I could just use some cash. "For what? Does it matter?" I guess it doesn't. He plucks the blue note out of my wallet and then deposits it back in my pants. "Thanks, Sam," he says, making his way back to the door. "I'll see you soon." Before I have a chance to respond, I wake to an overcast morning. The cold and the smell of burnt plastic is gone, but I find myself craving a cigarette. I meet Anna at the airport. When we first embrace in the arrivals lounge, things seem casual, happy, even. The fact that we're both in town for a funeral isn't lost to us, but it is obscured. There's a sort of giddiness that comes from seeing a familiar face, aged. As we make our way to the taxi stand, however, Stefan's death bubbles up. By the time we're outside, conversation dies down. As we get in the car, Anna goes silent. I can see the tears gathering at the edge of her eyes. The sobs come out dark and heavy. "I dreamt about him on the plane," she says. "I haven't slept a wink since his mother called me. Moment I close my eyes on the flight, though he's there. Smoking, I think of telling her about my midnight encounter with Stefan and how my wallet feels lighter, but I don't. Instead, I reach as far as the safety belt will allow me and run my hand across her back. The more she cries, the louder the radio gets. The family invites us for lunch, but we don't go. Anna says she needs the fresh air, and I have my own reasons for limiting familial sit-downs. After she drops off her bags at the Airbnb, we go over to the train station park where we used to hang out after school. The vagrants which fill the park are an uneasy sight, but they are nothing new. As we stroll, we catch each other up on the minutiae of the past decade. We've both aged, but she's aged more gracefully. Her nose still scrunches up when she smiles. Her laugh hasn't changed one bit. We sit on a bench in the park and talk about prom, about how we got too drunk, about how we broke into the water park and how Anna's neighbor almost fell asleep there, about how we'd die if we drank half as much as we did now. "Do you remember this bench?" she asks, after a long moment. I don't think so. First cigarette. Summer of 6th grade. The three of us. Blue L&Ms. That nicotine rush. Oh man, I say. And for a moment I am a head shorter, and it's a sunny afternoon. She breaks me out of my trance with a pack of cigarettes. "You smoke again?" I ask. "Quit when I went to the UK. Picked it up again on Saturday." The packaging is unfamiliar, but it reads L&M. I consider telling her that I quit too, but I just take one. I take it as pouring whiskey on Stefan's as yet unoccupied grave. The packaging is different, as is the actual cigarette, yet it all feels the same. "Sam," she says after a quiet moment, "I don't want to see her tomorrow." "Aunt Viera?" She blows out the smoke hard and nods. "She kept calling me after I moved." "Oh, Stefan misses you. When are you coming back home?" I told her we were broken up. So many times. She'd still call me at least once a year. She's a lot, I say, because she is. When I go visit Stefan's mother, the house is already crawling with family. Fortunately, the clan is drunk enough to be tolerable. Aunt Viera meets me in the hall reeking of wine and cheap perfume. She pinches my face and tells me how I've grown and how I don't spend enough time with family anymore. The apartment feels smaller than when I was a child, cramped even. Aunt Viera hasn't changed the least bit. Her hands are still covered in gaudy rings, her voice as nasally as ever, and age has not leached on her manic energy. The years have hit my hairline hard, but they have completely spared her. Aunt Viera asks me about Anna. When I tell her she's sleeping at the Airbnb after her flight, she says something about the Brits stealing away her manners. She then, with suddenly shuddering voice, proclaims that maybe Stefan would still be alive if she hadn't left. I consider telling her that's an unfair thing to say, but I don't. Her eyes are already glazed, and I know there's nothing I can say to the woman to change her. Instead, I give her a hug and let her pour me a glass of wine. When I get back to the apartment, I am drunk. Anna is fast asleep on the bed. Aside from the couch, there's nowhere else for me to lay. In the suddenness of the trip, we never discussed sleeping arrangements. For a moment I consider crawling under the covers with her, but I trust neither myself nor the situation. I gently pull away one of the blankets and take a pillow to the couch. Before sleep fully embraces me, I sense a shiver in my arms. The room's temperature drops. How was she? I hear his feet prop up on the table. "Your mom?" "Yeah." I take a deep breath and immediately regret it. The room smells rancid. All things considered, she's holding up, I finally say. "Drunk?" "A bit," I say, sitting up on the couch and opening my eyes. But everyone was. He looks worse than he looked the night before. The skin is sallow. His voice is strained. When our eyes meet, I notice a familiar twitch in his. When Stefan notices me noticing, he gets up. "It'd be ironic if they had a sober one for me, eh?" he says, before turning his attention to the bookshelf. His movements are jerky and unbalanced. Stefan grabs something off the shelf and begins studying it. "Think this is worth any cash?" A statuette of a Goral sheep herder. Possibly bronze, but most likely of cheaper stuff. Stefan trails the edges of the herder's long-brimmed hat with his hands. I can see them shaking from across the room. No idea, I say, watching him busy himself with the statuette. How's heaven? Stefan taps his finger on the sheep herder's upraised axe. He seems to be testing whether the metal will break the skin. Then, finally, non-committally, he says, "It's nice. Real peaceful. It's just expensive." "Expensive?" I ask, "What are you paying for?" He places the statuette back on the bookshelf, slowly, keeping the tremors at bay. Then he lights up a cigarette. Stefan keeps his back towards me. "Food," he finally says. "Food? What kind of food?" "Heaven food," he says, breathing out a gust of steam and smoke. "Why aren't you sleeping in the bedroom?" Anna's there. "So?" He smiles wide. There's genuine camaraderie in his eyes, but I can only focus on his teeth. There's less of them. They look even sicker. "We broke up a while ago, cousin," Stefan says, still grinning. "Don't let me get in the way." When I wake, the Goral statue is no longer on the bookshelf. I never paid any attention to it before. I start to wonder whether I hadn't just dreamed it up. Over coffee, I ask Anna if she noticed the statuette. She says she hasn't. Her mind is elsewhere. I drop the topic. There are more important things to contend with. Before the ceremony, immediate family is allowed time with the body. I hang in the back of the room and let Aunt Viera have her final moments with her son. The sobs are loud and ugly and give me gooseflesh. When she's finally finished, she collapses in a nearby chair and continues to weep. Other members of the family try to console her, but it's no use. As she shambles by me, I notice her hands are free of the usual tacky jewelry she wears. Stefan looks at peace. That is to say, he looks nothing like he did when alive. He's wearing a suit he'd never wear. His skin is powdered healthy. His hair is combed. There's the slightest bit of a Mona Lisa smile on his face. From the edge of his lips, I can see the faintest trace of thread. For a moment, I wonder what his teeth look like, and whether they're even inside of his skull. "Goodbye, Stefan," I whisper, even though I am pretty certain he can't hear me. Though Stefan died in his 30s, all the eulogies are for his younger self. They speak of childhood and school and the day he was born. No mention of him as an adult. No mention of the drugs, obviously. Anyone who had met him in the past 5 years knew, in one way or another, how the story would end, sooner than later. The priest takes the stage. He speaks of Stefan in broad terms. He speaks of how his corporeal body may be gone, but that a part of him lives on, in our minds, in our hearts, and the great ether of the unknown Stefan lives on. As the generalities pile up, I wonder, with a shiver, which parts of Stefan's soul outlasted the mortal coil. I stand with the rest of the family after Mass. I stand at the end of the row, fielding handshakes from uncles and aunts who I can't recall, confident in the idea that they can't recall me either. After the first wave of well-wishers, the old class starts to appear. High school friends and enemies and acquaintances, all wrinkled and creased and bloated and balding with age. Anna is the last in line. Aunt Viera consumes her in a massive bear hug, but I can tell neither of them are comfortable. When Anna comes to shake my hand, she doesn't say anything. Before Stefan's body is put into the ground, we sneak off for a cigarette behind the church. The Kiar is held at a restaurant a short walk from the cemetery. There's food, but no one seems particularly hungry. Instead, the well-wishers float towards the table with the liquor. The first couple of toasts are drank by family and old classmates alike. Yet as the alcohol starts to flow and speech turns too candid, the class of '09 retreats to their own grieving. Anna and I stay with the family, but eventually we tire of talking about Stefan's childhood and join the rest of the old class. We're welcome into the group, warmly, yet there is an undercurrent of distaste. She left for the UK. I left for Prague. Multiple times we are asked if we aren't too good for Poprad, and any opportunity to make us seem like snobs isn't missed. Digs aside, it's good to see familiar faces. Once the funeral itself starts to die down, those without children move towards a less morose venue. A dozen of us go to one of the pubs we used to frequent as youths. Back in high school, Robert, or Robo as we'd call him, used to smell like stale sweat and had no control of his liquor intake. Even with a suit and a coating of gray hairs, he hasn't changed one bit. The damn bastard borrowed some tools and never gave them back. I'm over it. Thou shalt not speak ill of the dead and all. No one winces. Stefan not returning something borrowed is as expected as the sunrise. It's what he says next that chills the room. But I've been having these dreams, Robo says, shifting in his seat. Every night since he went. Every single night. He shows up by my bed. He tells me what a good friend I've been and bygones be bygones, and he asks for money, Anna says. Damn right he asks for money. Classic Steph. Robo chuckles to himself and takes a healthy swig of his beer. Eternal beggar. Eternal, charming beggar. Were he here, I'd buy him around. To Stefan. Robo is too drunk to read the room. He is too drunk to realize he isn't the only who's been having dreams about Stefan. Do you think the priest was right? She asks, as we stroll down Poprad's lamplit streets towards the Airbnb, about a part of us living on after we die. Maybe, I say, sucking on a cigarette I promised myself I wouldn't smoke. Question is, which part? On the way back home, we stop by a convenience store and grab a bottle of wine. We plan to drink it in the Airbnb, but the night is warm and both of us are trying to soak in our old home before going to our new ones. Though the train station vagrants are considerably more frightening after sundown, we end up in the same park and on the same bench. I had my first kiss here, she says, taking a drag of the wine. Stefan? There's a flutter in my voice I don't like. Yeah, she says, and I kick the gravel beneath the bench. There's only two of us sitting, but I feel like a third wheel. The sensation is awfully nostalgic. A cold gust blows through the trees. We move closer together. You ever miss this place? She asks. Poprad? I don't know. Prague's something else. Definitely enjoy the peace and quiet and mountain air here, though. The wine is cheap and scratches its way down my throat. In the swill, however, I find a grain of truth. I do miss the people, though. Another cold gust of wind. We move even closer together. What about you? My voice flutters once more. Do you miss this place? She doesn't respond. Her eyes just hold mine and twinkle in the lamplight. Cousin, I must say, I'm disappointed. He leans in the doorway. His posture appears relaxed, but I can see him clawing at the frame. There's something deeply wrong with Stefan, beyond the fact that he's dead. Successful, smart, charming, pretty. I wasn't ever good enough for her. I was a fluke, he says, soundlessly moving across the bedroom. You, on the other hand. You, my up-and-coming Prager, she wouldn't let me sleep on the couch. Either I was to join her, or she would sleep on the couch herself. Though we share a bed, there's a no-man's land between us that seems to stretch on for miles. When I sit up, I do my best not to wake her. What are you doing? I ask, as I see him reach down for my pants. Questioning my cousin's choices, he says, grinning that incomplete smile. She's right there. She likes you. Always did. I can go if you want. That is, unless you want me to watch. What are you doing with my wallet? The smile fades. Stefan looks at me with bloodshot, twitching eyes. He chews on his cracked lips. You don't sleep when you're dead, cousin, he says. You don't sleep at all. Put down the wallet, Stefan. He doesn't. He grips the leather tight in his clawed fingers. Cousin, he says, the food's real expensive here. Put it down. For a moment I fear that he will leap at me, that this horrid remnant of my cousin will turn violent and mean me harm. He stands there, staring, letting the air get colder and colder until, finally, he lets the wallet drop. You'd think dying would make it easier, he says, his voice reaching an exhausted, dark tenor. It doesn't. When I wake, she's still asleep. Her purse is in the living room, though I'm certain she took it with her to the bedroom when we came home. It looks rifled through, as if someone was digging through it. I find my wallet where Stefan had left it. There's a lingering smell of sickness around it. I also find, almost imperceptible, scratches in the leather. Slowly, one by one, I take out my loyalty cards and IDs. Then, I go over to the kitchen and dispose of the wallet in the trash. The smell and scratches are unsettling, but what haunts me the most is that the wallet has been pilfered of all its cash.